declining output and financing challenges, characterized by unsustainable debt, rollover cocoa contract risk, and quasi-fiscal expenditures, including cocoa roads, which, Mr. Speaker, is a non-core function of the Ghana Cocoa Board. Right Honorable Speaker, cocoa production has dropped by nearly 50% over the past 3 years. In the year 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was unable to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa to meet its contractual obligation. This sharply decline has affected the finances of Ghana Cocoa Board. This undersupply has been rolled over for subsequent years for the new administration to pay. Mr. Speaker, these 2023 to 2024 forward sales contracts, locked in at lower prices than the current market rates, have resulted in revenue losses of about $840 million for both Ghana Cocoa Board and the impoverished cocoa farmer. Right Honorable Speaker, the rollout cocoa contract has resulted in a loss of $495 million for the year 2025 alone. Mr. Speaker, these are the risks in relation to the market price differentials and as a result, costs causing the smuggling that we see with Ghana Cocoa Board. Mr. Speaker, Cocoa Board outstanding debt amount to 32 billion Ghana cedis, of which 11.92 billion is due to be paid in the year 2025. Outstanding cocoa road contracts reached 21 billion Ghana cedis, approximately $1.3 billion in the year 2024, of which only 4.4 billion has been accounted for in Cocoa Board's finances for the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, the financial sector still struggles even after spending 30.3 billion in the financial sector cleanup exercise by end 2024. This includes 26.9 billion Ghana cedis after spending this amount in the banking sector. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the financial sector is still struggling, and the financial sector will require 10.45 billion Ghana cedis to address the financial sector legacy issues and emerging risk. In addition, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis is required to fully capitalize the National Investment Bank and the Agricultural Development Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I will also update the House on the fiscal performance for the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal performance in the year 2024 was characterized by improved revenue collection, but with significant expenditure overruns. In addition, large arrests were accumulated over the period. Mr. Speaker, in summary, the provisional data shows the following. 1. Primary balance on commitment basis, the key fiscal anchor of the IMF program, worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP at the end of 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% of GDP at the end of the year 2024. This is 4.4 percentage points worse than the target surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, on cash basis, Mr. Speaker, the primary balance was a deficit of 1.2% of GDP against a target of 0.6% of GDP, representing 100% deviation. Mr. Speaker, the overall fiscal balance on commitment basis for 2024 was a deficit of 7.9% of GDP against a target of 4.2% of GDP, while the overall fiscal balance on cash basis was a deficit of 5.2% of GDP against a target of 5.3% of GDP. Total revenue and grant amounted to 186.6 billion Ghana cedis, or 15.9% of GDP, 5.3% above the revised target of 177.2 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.4% of GDP. The performance was mainly driven by higher than programmed oil and gas receipts and higher non-oil tax revenue collection. Total expenditure on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 279.2 billion, or 23.7% of GDP. This is 27.1% above the budget provisions of the year 2024, Mr. Speaker. The primary balance on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 232.4 billion or 19.8% of GDP. This is 35.3% above the target of 171.7 billion or 16.8% of GDP. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, all expenditure lines exceeded their respective targets for the period, except for interest payments, goods and service, and other expenditures. Right Honorable Speaker, the discrepancies for the year 2024 being unclassified expenditure was 3.8 billion Ghana cedis as compared to 12.9 billion Ghana cedis in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, at the end of December 2024, provisional data indicate that gross central government and guaranteed debt was 726.7 billion from 610 billion in 2023. This represents 61.8% of GDP in 2024, compared to 68.7% in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP ratio and the dollar component of our debt that has come down, that has reduced, is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal of Eurobond debt under the debt restructuring. Mr. Speaker, it is important to know that. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP that has reduced is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal and interest that were given to Eurobond bondholders. Mr. Speaker, you may recall that the government commenced the debt restructuring program in the year 2022 to restore debt sustainability and economic stability. As of now, the restructuring process is approximately 93% completed. The remaining 7% relate to debt of $2.7 billion owed to commercial creditors. We are committed to completing the remaining debt restructuring as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, real sector development in the year 2024. Right Honorable Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistical Service on the 10th of March 2025 shows that overall real GDP growth increase. The Speaker, at the end of increased to 5.7% in the year 2024. The Speaker, I take that again. The Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistical Service on the 10th of March 2025 show that overall GDP growth grew by 5.7% of GDP compared to the growth rate of 3.1% recorded over the same period. Mr. Speaker, the key driver of this growth was largely coming from gold mine. Mr. Speaker, including Galamsey. Mr. Speaker, Galamsey growth cannot be sustainable. Mr. Speaker, non-oil GDP growth. Mr. Speaker, the non-oil GDP grew by 0.6% in the year 2024, compared with a growth rate of 3.6% recorded in 2023. Mr. Speaker, the gross international reserves increased to a stock position of $8.98 billion at the end of 2024 and was enough to cover 4 months of imports, exceeding the target of a floor of 3 months of import cover. At the end of 2024, the currency had depreciated by 19.2% against the US dollars, 17.8% against the British pound, Mr. Speaker, and it had depreciated by 13.7% against the euro. The Speaker, Right Honourable Speaker, it is what it is. The state of our economy is troubling, but we will fix it.